Welcome, dear listeners, to another journey of thought and story. Tonight we turn our gaze to the ancient skies of Greece. High above Mount Olympus, the figure of Zeus once ruled with thunder in hand. But beyond the myths, beyond the lightning, lies a deeper meaning. Zeus was not only a god of storms, he was a symbol of order itself. The ancients saw in him the breath of justice and the law of the cosmos. Every thunderbolt was not just power, but a reminder of balance. Philosophers turned the name of Zeus into a key for universal truth. For them, Zeus meant reason woven into the fabric of the world. He became more than a king. He became the law that binds all things. In this episode, we will explore that transformation of meaning, from mythic ruler to symbol of natural order and eternal law. We will ask, what does Zeus represent for the human spirit today? How can a story from long ago guide the way we live now? This is not the tale of battles or storms, but of wisdom. It is the story of how Zeus still speaks through philosophy. So sit back, open your mind, and let us walk together into the timeless, into the realm where myth and philosophy embrace, and where Zeus, the symbol of universal law, awaits our reflection. Long ago, when the night was filled with stars, people told stories of gods and their powers. Among all gods, one name stood highest, shining like the brightest star in the sky. That name was Zeus, the mighty ruler of Olympus, guardian of the heavens and the earth. He was imagined with thunder in his hand, a voice that echoed across valleys and seas. To the people, Zeus was not just a figure of fear, but also a promise of order. When storms broke the silence, they believed it was Zeus speaking, reminding them of his power. When rain fell upon the fields, it was his gift, feeding the earth and sustaining life. The myths painted him as a king, seated on a golden throne, crowned by eternal authority. He held dominion not only over gods, but also over the rhythm of nature itself. In the sky, every cloud, every flash of lightning, carried whispers of his presence. Yet behind this mythic image lies a more profound story, waiting to be uncovered. Zeus was more than a character of tales told by poets and bards. He was a reflection of humanity's need to explain the forces beyond control. People looked at the chaos of storms and the unpredictability of life. They needed a figure who could embody both power and justice. Zeus became that figure, bridging human understanding and the mysteries of nature. In the old stories, he fought for the throne of the universe, securing victory over chaos. But in philosophy, this struggle takes on a different meaning, deeper and more symbolic. The battle was not about weapons or destruction, but about order rising from disorder. To the thinkers of Greece, Zeus was the symbol of cosmos, the organized harmony of existence. The cosmos stood against chaos, and Zeus stood as its eternal guardian. Every thunderbolt in myth could be read as a sign of justice in philosophy. Every storm could be understood as law itself, shaping the balance of the world. He was not merely a god of the sky, but the embodiment of universal principle. Through Zeus, the Greeks imagined the possibility of law that governs all life. A law not written on stone, but carved into the heart of the universe. A law that bound gods, humans, animals, and nature in one eternal web. This is why Zeus was honored as more than a powerful deity. He was revered as a reminder of order, justice, and natural law. Even the poets, when speaking of Zeus, used words heavy with philosophy. They said he saw all, judged all, and ensured the balance of heaven and earth. No storm, no event, no life escaped the gaze of Zeus, the universal eye. The myths gave him form, but philosophy gave him meaning. He was transformed from a mythic king into a symbol of eternal law. In this light, Zeus was not distant, but always present in daily life. Each sunrise was his gift, each season his design, each storm his reminder. To walk under the sky was to walk under the order of Zeus. To live in harmony with nature was to live under his universal law. Thus, the myth of Zeus opened the doorway to philosophical reflection. He was no longer just a ruler of gods, but the very spirit of order. He became the idea that life must be balanced, that chaos must yield to law. The ancients, in their wisdom, clothed philosophy in myth to reach human hearts. Through Zeus, they spoke of the eternal truth. Order sustains, justice binds, law governs. And so the mythic king of Olympus became something greater than legend. He became the voice of philosophy, calling humans to live within the harmony of the cosmos. This is where our journey begins, with Zeus, the king of gods, and the guardian of universal law. In the beginning, before Zeus was crowned as king, there was only vast chaos without form or order. The Greeks imagined a time when nothing was stable, when darkness and confusion filled the world. From this endless uncertainty, forces emerged, shaping the early foundation of the universe. It was here that Zeus rose, not only as a ruler, but as a principle of order. The myths tell of battles for power, but behind them lies a deeper lesson. That lesson is the triumph of structure, harmony, and law over disorder and chaos. Zeus became the image of stability, the one who brought rhythm to the universe. For the philosophers, this was not merely a story, but a key to understanding reality. They saw in Zeus the eternal truth that the cosmos seeks balance against chaos. Cosmos, in Greek, meant not only world, but also order and beauty. By connecting Zeus with cosmos, thinkers placed him at the heart of existence. He was no longer a god among gods, but the very structure of universal harmony. Every act of Zeus could be interpreted as nature's push toward balance and justice. When he spoke through thunder, it was order breaking into the silence of chaos. When storms passed, leaving behind clear skies, it was the symbol of restored balance. The ancients saw chaos not only in the sky, but in human life as well. Unrest, conflict, and uncertainty were forms of chaos that touched every community. Zeus, then, was more than a divine figure. He was hope for stability. He reminded people that order would always rise again, no matter the turmoil. Philosophers like Heraclitus spoke of tension and balance, of order born from strife. In their vision, Zeus embodied that principle, the unity hidden within opposites. Chaos was not something to fear, but something to be shaped by cosmic law. Zeus became the living metaphor of that shaping power, the guardian of balance. Even the poets hinted at this when they described him as the father of gods and men. He was not only a ruler, but also the bond holding everything together. This bond was not chains of force, but threads of reason woven into reality. The Stoics would later say that Zeus and Logos were one and the same. Logos meant the rational principle guiding the cosmos, the wisdom in every event. Through this idea, Zeus was lifted beyond myth and placed within philosophy. His thunderbolts were no longer weapons, but sparks of divine reason. Each flash of lightning became a sign that law ruled even in the storm. The triumph of Zeus over chaos became the triumph of order over disorder. The cosmos was secure, not by chance, but by the presence of universal law. This gave humans a sense of meaning, a trust in the stability of life. Even when uncertainty returned, the name of Zeus was a reminder of order. The myths told children of gods, but philosophy told adults of principles. And Zeus was the bridge between story and truth, between image and meaning. His reign on Olympus symbolized the reign of law over chaos itself. Every story of his power became a lesson about the structure of the world. Thus, when the ancients looked to the heavens, they saw more than stars. They saw the face of order itself, shining through the figure of Zeus. The clouds, the storms, the balance of seasons, all reflected his eternal rule. Zeus stood as the victory of cosmos, the eternal triumph of order against chaos. And so his myth became philosophy, and his story became the language of universal law. The ancients believed that Zeus was not only the ruler of Olympus, but also the keeper of natural law. Natural law was the silent rhythm that guided stars, rivers, winds, and human lives alike. It was not written in books or carved on stone, but woven into the very fabric of existence. When the sun rose each morning, it was a reflection of this hidden law. When the seasons turned, from spring to summer, autumn to winter, the law was revealed again. Zeus, in myth and philosophy, stood as the symbol of that order. He was not merely a storm god, but the breath of reason in the cosmos. Philosophers looked to him and said, "Here is the universal order that governs all things." The Stoics, especially, believed that Zeus and Logos were one and the same. Logos was the divine reason, the principle that structured the world with wisdom. Zeus, then, was the name given to the law that holds the universe together. This law was not a force of fear, but of balance, harmony, and eternal justice. When lightning flashed across the sky, it was seen as the reminder of universal law. It told humanity that no action, no thought, no life was outside cosmic order. The poets sang of Zeus as the father of justice, watching all with an unblinking eye. For them, he was the voice that kept kings accountable and people honest. He did not write laws like rulers did, but his laws were higher, invisible, eternal. Philosophers taught that even the gods themselves were bound by this natural law. Zeus did not create the law. He was the living embodiment of it. This was the heart of philosophy. Law above all, guiding both gods and men. In this vision, nature itself was alive with order, breathing through every tree and river. To walk in nature was to walk within the body of Zeus, the law made visible. The birds sang, the rain fell, the winds moved, all within the rhythm of natural law. Zeus became the teacher, reminding humanity that life is not random, but purposeful. When injustice appeared, people believed Zeus would restore balance through his unseen law. Justice was not always swift, but always certain, carried by the weight of nature's order. The philosophers asked, how should humans live within this universal law? Their answer was simple: live according to nature, live according to Zeus. This meant living in harmony with reason, justice, and the flow of the cosmos. It was a call to listen not to desire, but to the voice of balance. Zeus became not only a god of power, but a guide to human conduct. His presence reminded people to honor truth, to act justly, and to respect harmony. Every violation of nature was a violation of Zeus, a disruption of universal law. Every act of kindness, every pursuit of wisdom, was an offering to Zeus himself. Thus, the myth of Zeus carried lessons that shaped daily life and moral thought. He was not distant, but close, present in every sunrise and every storm. Even silence, the stillness of the night sky, was filled with his invisible law. The Stoics declared that to know Zeus was to know the Logos, the rational soul of the world, and to live well was to live in alignment with that soul, in peace with nature. Zeus, therefore, was not only the king of gods, but the philosopher's god of reason. Through him, philosophy spoke of laws that are eternal, beyond human change or decay. It spoke of the order that governs the stars, the seas, and the human heart. Zeus, in this way, was more than myth. He was the symbol of natural law itself. He was the reminder that the world is not chaos, but a harmony waiting to be seen. And to live under Zeus was to live in the embrace of justice, truth, and eternal order. Justice, in the eyes of the ancients, was not only a human invention, but a gift from Zeus himself. They believed that every act of fairness carried the silent echo of his presence. Zeus was called the protector of justice, the guardian of truth, the one who saw all. In myths, he punished those who broke sacred oaths and rewarded those who acted with honor. But beyond these tales, philosophers understood Zeus as the living symbol of justice itself. Justice was not just a rule to follow, but the natural balance of the universe. It was the unseen scale that weighed every thought, every choice, every human deed. Zeus, as the father of justice, reminded people that nothing escapes universal balance. Even the smallest lie or hidden cruelty was known, for the cosmos itself remembers. The poet said that Zeus had many eyes, always watching, always guarding human conduct. This image was not meant to instill fear, but to awaken conscience. The Greeks believed that justice was not arbitrary, but rooted in divine order. To act unjustly was to resist Zeus, to break harmony with the universal law. To live justly was to honor him, aligning human life with cosmic truth. The philosophers carried this idea further, shaping it into a foundation of moral thought. They declared that justice is not given by kings or governments, but eternal in nature. Even rulers were judged by Zeus, measured by the fairness of their actions. A king without justice was no true king, for he stood against divine balance. Thus, Zeus became the voice whispering to leaders, "Rule with fairness, or lose your throne." This concept traveled beyond myths, influencing the very core of Greek philosophy. Plato, in his dialogues, spoke of justice as harmony in the soul and in society. Zeus, as a symbol, represented that harmony on the grandest cosmic scale. The Stoics taught that to live justly is to live according to Zeus's eternal reason. They saw in him the law that binds stars, seasons, and human choices together. Justice, therefore, was not optional, but necessary for life to flourish in balance. Zeus was the reminder that fairness is woven into the structure of reality itself. Every unjust act, they believed, disturbed not only society but also the order of nature. Every just action, however small, resonated with the harmony of the cosmos. This is why oaths were sacred, for to break them was to defy Zeus directly. To lie was to dishonor him. To live in truth was to honor his presence. Through this lens, Zeus became less of a thunder-wielding god and more of a moral guide. He was philosophy wrapped in myth, teaching that justice sustains both heaven and earth. The ancients prayed not only for blessings, but for guidance in fairness and truth. They asked Zeus to keep their hearts aligned with the eternal law of justice. In their courts, they invoked his name, believing judgment carried his silent approval. Every verdict, they thought, echoed the justice that Zeus himself embodied. The philosophers used these beliefs to teach a higher vision of human life. They said that justice is the soul's greatest virtue, the crown of wisdom. To live without justice was to live outside of Zeus, in disharmony with the cosmos. But to act with fairness was to share in divine order, to reflect the eternal. This understanding gave courage to the weak and humility to the powerful. It reminded people that justice is greater than desire, ambition, or fear. And at the center of it all stood Zeus, the symbol of the voice of justice. Not a distant god, but the living presence of fairness within the fabric of existence. He taught through myth, he guided through philosophy, and he ruled through law, eternal. Thus, Zeus became not only a king of gods, but the guardian of human conscience. And his justice was the bridge between the law of the cosmos and the choices of mankind. The ancients often linked Zeus not only to law and justice, but also to the voice of destiny itself. They believed that Zeus was the mind of fate, the hidden hand shaping the course of time. To them, destiny was not random, but guided by a principle that Zeus embodied. The Greeks called this principle Moira, the thread of fate that weaves all lives together. Zeus, though powerful, was not separate from this order, but united with it. He was seen as both guardian and participant in the universal design of destiny. Philosophers later understood this union as a sign of reason behind existence. They saw fate not as blind force, but as wisdom governing all creation. Zeus became the voice of that wisdom, the breath of law within unfolding time. Every moment, they thought, carried his silent decree, shaping life in unseen ways. This did not mean humans were without choice, but that choices aligned with cosmic flow. Destiny was not a cage, but a river, and Zeus was the current moving it. To resist was struggle, to follow was harmony, to understand was wisdom. The Stoics embraced this vision, teaching that Zeus is the divine reason, or logos. Logos was not only thought, but the living order that steers stars and souls alike. For them, to live according to Logos was to live according to Zeus. Fate, in this way, became not an enemy but a guide toward the highest good. When hardship came, it was not Zeus's cruelty, but his reminder of inner strength. When joy arrived, it was the harmony of fate, aligning with human hope. This philosophy offered peace in uncertain times, a way to accept the unchangeable. Zeus, as destiny, was the teacher of patience, courage, and trust in cosmic law. The poets reflected this truth in myth, cloaking wisdom in story and song. They told of Zeus as the one who wove the seasons and marked the years. The cycle of birth, growth, decay, and renewal was his unending rhythm. Each storm, each harvest, each dawn was fate unfolding under his watchful gaze. Thus, people felt connected not only to gods but to the structure of reality itself. Philosophers spoke of this as the harmony between necessity and freedom. Humans act, but Zeus holds the thread that joins actions into the fabric of destiny. This vision gave life meaning, for nothing was wasted in the order of Zeus. Even sorrow had purpose. Even struggle held a hidden lesson of divine wisdom. Through him, destiny was not chaos, but the unfolding of eternal law. The ancients prayed not to escape fate, but to walk within its harmony. They asked Zeus for clarity, to see the path that destiny had prepared. They sought strength not to change fate, but to change themselves within it. This is where philosophy met myth. The voice of Zeus was the voice of reason, and reason, they believed, was the highest gift fate could offer humankind. Zeus stood as the symbol that destiny is not darkness, but light with order. He reminded people that life is part of a larger pattern beyond sight. Every end is tied to a beginning, every path to a greater unfolding design. To accept this was not defeat, but wisdom, the courage to live with grace. The philosophers carried this vision into the heart of ethical thought. They said, if fate is Zeus's law, then virtue is our way to follow it. By living with wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation, we live in harmony with Zeus. And by aligning with him, we align with the order of destiny itself. Thus, Zeus as fate became more than myth, more than symbol, more than story. He became a guiding star, showing that life has meaning in every turning. That destiny is not fear, but faith. Not chains, but the song of cosmic law. And at the center of this song is Zeus, the eternal mind of fate. In ancient thought, Zeus was not only the guardian of justice or destiny, but also the ruler of natural order. The ancients looked to the sky, the seas, the forests, and saw his hand in every rhythm of nature. They said the thunder was his voice, the rain his blessing, and the clear sky his peace. Seasons unfolded as his eternal law, shaping the cycle of planting, growth, harvest, and rest. To them, nature was not wild chaos, but a living structure governed by divine harmony. Zeus was the axis, the central force that bound heaven, earth, and mortal life together. The Greeks lived close to the land, so they felt this order in daily survival. Each seed planted, each storm endured, was part of Zeus's eternal orchestration. For farmers, Zeus was not only myth, but the unseen law of crops and seasons. Sailors raised prayers to him, trusting that fair winds or storms came by his order. Philosophers took this simple faith and shaped it into deeper reflections on natural law. They taught that Zeus is reason in nature, the principle that makes the cosmos intelligible. This reason was not invented by humans, but discovered through observing order in the world. The balance of day and night, the order of stars, the rhythm of life itself, Zeus was there. To them, this revealed that law is not a human creation, but part of the universe itself. Zeus symbolized the truth that natural order is eternal, binding gods and mortals alike. In this vision, to live against nature was to live against Zeus. To live in harmony with nature was to share in divine wisdom. This was not only survival, but philosophy, a guide for human virtue and choice. The Stoics later declared that nature itself is the temple of Zeus. To them, the forest, the sea, the sky were not random but sacred expressions of cosmic law. They believed the human soul is a fragment of this same divine order. Thus, when a person acts with wisdom, they echo the harmony of Zeus in nature. When they act against reason, they fall into disharmony with the cosmos. This belief inspired humility, for even kings could not bend the order of nature. The greatest empires still bowed to storms, earthquakes, and the changing seasons. All power returned to the truth that Zeus rules through natural law. Poets reflected this wisdom in myth, turning natural events into symbols of his will. A drought was not only weather, but a reminder of human dependence on divine balance. A harvest was not only food, but a blessing of harmony between humans and the earth. Through these stories, people learned that gratitude was part of living in Zeus's world. The philosophers echoed this with a different voice, but the meaning was the same. They urged people to study nature, to see in its order the wisdom of Zeus. They asked, if the stars obey eternal law, should not human beings seek the same? If rivers flow by necessity, should not human choices follow the path of reason? Zeus became the reminder that human law must reflect the higher law of nature. A city that ignored this would fall, but one that honored it would thrive. Thus, natural law became the bridge between cosmic order and human society. Zeus was the symbol standing on that bridge, uniting philosophy and daily life. The ancients learned from him that to respect nature was to respect themselves. They saw that every creature, every tree, every stream was part of divine design. The smallest ant and the highest mountain both carried the imprint of Zeus. And so, reverence for nature became reverence for the eternal law of existence. In this way, Zeus was not distant, but present in every breeze and every dawn. His presence was felt in the silence of forests and the vastness of the open sky. He was the order that made life possible, the harmony that sustained creation. To honor him was to live wisely, in balance with the rhythm of natural law. And through this balance, humans discovered the deepest truth. To follow nature is to follow Zeus. The ancients often linked Zeus with the power of kingship and the principles of leadership. He was seen not just as ruler of gods, but as the model for human rulers on earth. Kings and leaders invoked his name, believing their authority reflected his cosmic sovereignty. To them, ruling was not merely holding power, but carrying a sacred responsibility. Zeus represented that responsibility, the duty to rule with justice, wisdom, and restraint. In myths, he sat on Olympus as king, balancing mercy with firmness, authority with fairness. This image inspired human rulers to see leadership as service, not self-indulgence. Philosophers built on this, teaching that true authority comes only with moral responsibility. Without justice, leadership collapses, for it stands against the universal law of Zeus. A leader must act not for self, but for harmony within community and cosmos. Zeus reminded them that power is a trust, not a possession, given for the good of all. When rulers forgot this, myths warned of downfall and loss of divine favor. But when they remembered, their reign aligned with the eternal order of Zeus. The Stoics drew deeply from this vision of leadership grounded in natural law. They taught that a ruler must govern by reason, reflecting the cosmic reason of Zeus. Such leadership was not tyranny but stewardship, guiding society in balance with nature. A true leader mirrored Zeus, embodying fairness, courage, and respect for divine order. In this way, philosophy transformed myth into a guide for political life. Plato imagined the philosopher king, wise enough to rule by eternal truths, not desire. Though he spoke of ideals, he drew upon the same spirit Zeus embodied. The image of Zeus as ruler became a timeless metaphor for ethical governance. Even in law courts, oaths were sworn in his name, binding leaders to truth. This practice reminded rulers that their authority was under divine observation. Zeus's justice was not distant, but present in every judgment they declared. The ancients believed a kingdom flourished only when aligned with Zeus's law. When rulers abused power, disorder spread, for cosmic balance had been broken. But when rulers honored Zeus, peace and prosperity followed as natural consequence. This was no superstition, but a profound lesson on responsibility and power. The philosophers carried this teaching into their reflections on civic life. They urged citizens to recognize that leadership is a shared trust. Even in small roles, judge, parent, teacher one, echoed the duty of Zeus. For leadership, they said, is not about command, but about alignment with law. Every act of guidance, however small, carried the weight of cosmic responsibility. Zeus symbolized this truth, showing that to lead is to reflect divine balance. Poets captured it in stories of his throne, his scepter, his watchful presence. Philosophers echoed it in reasoned discourse about virtue, justice, and civic duty. Both spoke the same wisdom. True power is service to the greater good. This lesson traveled far beyond Greece, shaping visions of rulership in later thought. The Roman idea of law carried echoes of Zeus as guardian of cosmic order. Even in modern times, the principle endures. Authority without justice cannot stand. Zeus remains the symbol of the truth that leadership is sacred responsibility. Not privilege, but service. Not domination, but stewardship. Not greed, but harmony. The ancients prayed that rulers would remember this when seated on their thrones. They prayed for leaders guided not by ambition, but by the eternal reason of Zeus. This vision of leadership endures because it speaks to the essence of power. Power is not to possess, but to guide in alignment with higher law. Zeus, as symbol, still whispers that truth into the heart of every leader. And for those who listen, leadership becomes not a burden, but a sacred calling. The ancients saw Zeus not only in the thunder above, but also in the quiet laws of hospitality. For them, the way one treated a guest revealed harmony or disharmony with cosmic order. Hospitality was sacred, for every stranger could carry the unseen presence of Zeus. This belief shaped daily life, reminding people that kindness was more than courtesy. It was an act of reverence, a reflection of the divine principle of harmony. Zeus was called times Xenios asterisk, protector of guests, guardian of the bond between host and traveler. To neglect a guest was to dishonor him. To show cruelty was to defy cosmic law. Philosophers reflected on this, teaching that human bonds mirror the order of the universe. The balance of society, like the balance of stars, depends on mutual respect. Zeus symbolized this respect, making hospitality an expression of justice and natural order. In myth, he often disguised himself as a stranger to test the hearts of mortals. Those who welcomed him with kindness were blessed. Those who rejected him faced disharmony. Yet the lesson was not fear, but awareness. Every encounter is sacred in essence. Hospitality thus became more than custom. It became philosophy in practice. To open one's home was to open one's soul to the rhythm of Zeus. This belief extended into civic life, shaping laws about strangers and foreign guests. Cities that honored foreigners prospered, for they aligned themselves with cosmic fairness. Those that rejected them fell into decline, reflecting imbalance against divine law. Philosophers found in this tradition a lesson about human unity. They argued that all people, though divided by language or land, share one cosmic order. Zeus, as Xenios, symbolized this unity, the truth that humanity is one family. To harm a stranger was to harm oneself, for all lives were bound together. The Stoics embraced this idea, teaching that every human carries the spark of Zeus. Thus, hospitality was not kindness to others, but recognition of the divine within them. This insight transformed myth into a foundation for universal ethics. To care for a guest was to honor Zeus, to live in harmony with cosmic law. To deny care was to fall into ignorance, breaking the thread of universal reason. The ancients lived this wisdom not only in ritual, but in daily simplicity. They set aside food for travelers, offered shelter, and spoke words of welcome. Even the poorest household could honor Zeus by sharing what little they had. This practice kept society alive, binding people together across distance and difference. Philosophers carried this further, declaring that virtue itself is hospitality of the soul. Wisdom welcomes truth. Courage welcomes challenge. Justice welcomes fairness. Moderation welcomes balance. In this way, the soul becomes a host to the eternal presence of Zeus. The poets wove these truths into their stories so that memory would keep the lesson. A guest was never only a guest, but a mirror of the divine order. Through myth and philosophy, the message endured, treat each person as sacred. Hospitality was not weakness but strength, for it aligned human hearts with cosmic law. Zeus was present in the meal shared, the bed offered, the kind words spoken. Each act of welcome was a prayer, each gesture of kindness a sacrifice to him. This made ordinary life extraordinary, filled with the quiet presence of divinity. The ancients thus learned that true greatness lies not only in power or glory, it lies in kindness, fairness, and the courage to welcome the stranger as kin. Zeus, as Xenios, reminded them that humanity is bound together by sacred duty. And through hospitality, every home became a temple, every guest a reflection of the divine. The ancients often raised their eyes to the stars and found Zeus dwelling in the order of the heavens. The night sky was not chaos, but harmony, each star in place, each planet moving by unseen law. Zeus was believed to be the mind behind this order, the rhythm that held the cosmos together. Thunder reminded them of his presence, but the constellations whispered of his eternal reason. For philosophers, this vision was a bridge between myth and natural science. They saw in Zeus not only the god of storms, but the principle of cosmic intelligence. The Stoics called this times logos asterisk, the rational fire that guides the universe and sustains life. Zeus, in this sense, was not far away, but present in the very breath of existence. He was the law of gravity before gravity had a name, the rhythm of seasons before calendars. Every sunrise was his justice, every orbit his truth, every pattern his eternal will. To study the heavens was to listen to Zeus, to hear his silent teaching of order. Astronomers, poets, and philosophers agreed that the cosmos itself reflected divine harmony. The stars were not random sparks, but signs of a deeper intelligence shaping reality. Myths wove stories around constellations, but philosophy saw in them a language of truth. Zeus stood as the guarantor that the universe was not chaos, but meaningful. His presence gave comfort, for if the stars followed law, so could human life. The ancients believed that as the cosmos was ordered, so should the soul be. Philosophers urged people to mirror the stars, to move with rhythm, reason, and balance. Zeus became not just king of gods, but teacher of the eternal discipline of order. This belief shaped ethics. To live well was to live in harmony with universal law. The Stoics declared, "Live according to nature," meaning live in step with the will of Zeus. They saw human reason as a spark of his greater reason, a fragment of his cosmic fire. Thus, each person carried within them a piece of the universal law. To ignore it was to fall into disorder. To honor it was to live in peace. Zeus symbolized this truth, that cosmic order and human virtue are reflections of one reality. The poets sang of him as the one who holds the scales of balance. Philosophers echoed them, declaring that justice is simply living in harmony with cosmic design. The stars above and the conscience within both pointed back to the law of Zeus. In this way, the night sky became a temple, and study became a form of worship. Every movement of planets was a sermon, every eclipse a lesson, every season a parable. Zeus was not only on Olympus, but written into the very fabric of existence. This truth inspired humility, for humans were part of a vast and ordered whole. It also inspired responsibility, for each action must align with the balance of the cosmos. The ancients prayed not only for favor, but for wisdom to walk in harmony. Zeus did not ask for fear, but for recognition of his law in all things. The beauty of the cosmos was itself his offering, his reminder that order is sacred. Philosophy carried this forward, teaching that science and ethics are one. To understand the stars was to understand justice. To know the universe was to know virtue. Zeus remained the symbol binding myth, science, and morality into one vision. A vision where the cosmos is not accident but harmony, not chaos but meaning. This vision endured, shaping later thought in Rome, in medieval philosophy, and beyond. Even today, the wonder of the cosmos speaks in the same ancient language. It whispers that behind the stars lies reason, behind reason lies order, behind order lies truth. And at the heart of that truth, the ancients saw the eternal presence of Zeus. The image of Zeus, as guardian of law, did not end with the ancients, but flowed into later thought. His symbol carried forward into Rome, where Jupiter became the embodiment of justice and order. The Romans swore oaths in his name. Believing divine law upheld their civic institutions. Even their legal codes carried echoes of Zeus, as if law itself was a sacred trust. In philosophy, the figure of Zeus continued to inspire reflection on natural law. Thinkers saw him as more than myth, but as metaphor for reason woven into creation. To speak of Zeus was to speak of the principle that law is not invented, but discovered. Law arises not from whim, but from harmony that existed before human hands. Zeus symbolized this eternal truth. Justice is not opinion, but alignment with universal order. Through this vision, philosophers connected ethics, politics, and science under one cosmic principle. The Stoics carried the idea into Rome, teaching that all humans share divine reason. They called the world a common city, with Zeus as its eternal ruler and lawgiver. Citizenship, then, was not limited to a nation, but extended to all humanity. This vision of universal brotherhood found its roots in the law of Zeus. Later, thinkers carried the thread, weaving it into Christian philosophy and medieval thought. The idea of divine law became central, shaping ideas of justice, duty, and morality. Zeus, though reinterpreted, remained in the background as the symbol of cosmic reason. The Renaissance rediscovered the wisdom of the ancients, reviving their vision of harmony. Artists painted the heavens not as chaos, but as radiant order reflecting divine law. Philosophers again sought unity of science, ethics, and faith, echoing the spirit of Zeus. Even in the Enlightenment, the principle endured beneath new names and languages. Thinkers like Locke and Montesquieu spoke of natural law as foundation of human freedom. Behind their words lived the same insight. Justice must reflect a higher, universal truth. Zeus, the old symbol, had not vanished, but transformed into the language of reason. His thunder became the voice of conscience, his throne the eternal order of the cosmos. Through centuries, his presence was felt wherever law was tied to morality and justice. In modern times, his lesson still whispers, authority without justice is fragile. Law without harmony fails. We may no longer swear oaths to Zeus, yet his symbol lives in our ideals. Each time we speak of universal rights, we echo his ancient role as lawgiver. Each time we seek fairness beyond borders, we walk in the path of his justice. The philosophers remind us that symbols are not about belief alone, but about meaning. Zeus is not merely a god of myth, but a mirror of eternal law in human form. His presence in philosophy shows the power of myth to teach beyond its age. The ancients saw in him the truth that order is sacred, law is divine, justice is eternal. Their vision has never been lost, only reshaped, retold, renewed through time. When we look for meaning and justice, we still hear the echo of his law. When we act with fairness, we carry forward the sacred duty once tied to Zeus. And when we see the cosmos as ordered, we remember the lesson he embodied. That truth does not change. Only the words and stories used to tell it. Zeus remains, not on Olympus, but in the living idea of universal law. He remains in every act of justice, every effort to align with harmony. And through him, the ancients speak still. Live in step with the eternal order. For to do so is to honor law, life, and the divine reason within us all.